Okay, this is part 2, creating custom road assemblies in Infraworks. So what we're going to be doing is designing out some roadways in Infraworks, very similar to what we did in Civil 3D. So just as a quick review, road designs in developed areas are often standardized. We use the Bryan College Station standards, but you'll find those over a lot of the area. If you want actually specifics, you can go to bcsunited.net and find all the specifics for the Bryan College Station area. And in that, you'll find dimensions for curbs, you'll find dimensions for roads, for sidewalks, everything like that. And what we're going to do is going to be very similar to what we did in Civil 3D. We're going to take this data and use it to help us create some accurate models in Infraworks. That includes right-of-ways and all that other information. So what are we going to do? So we're going to come in and create a road. We'll just call this, we can name it whatever, freeway road. We can name it major collector. It kind of depends on what we want to name it. And what we're going to do right now is place a small part of it, just a small section of it, because what I want to do is I want to create an assembly, and we're going to there's none that are in there already, so we're going to create a unique one, and I'm going to start with something initially and then develop out of that. And so we're going to come in on an empty part of the model, we're going to create a new component road, and what we're going to do is we're going to type in and create the assembly based on a 4-lane undivided road, and we're going to use that for a collector. And then once we finish drawing out that road and placing it, we're going to start customizing it to what we want for our major collector. All right, so let's show how we're going to do that. So the first thing I should discuss is proposals. What proposals are going to be is they're going to be different kind of saves of the same file. So they're going to be stored in that file, but they're going to be different options that you can do in that file. It's very important to use proposals in your design. So if you actually look at our design file that we're using, so this is the one that you've copied and opened up, what it's going to look like is this whenever we start. So this is going to be what's called the master view, and you never want to mess with the master view. The master view has all the information on it, everything else based on your design. And so this is the master view of our product. And you can see here's the different creeks and everything else. This is a much higher level model. I actually upgraded the amount of surface information and data in here. This is using a pretty dense LiDAR field to get all this information. But you can see this, but it doesn't have an image draped on it. It doesn't have roads draped on it or anything like that. But if you come up here, proposals is right up here. And the first one that you'll always see is master. And then if you click on that, you can add new proposals. Now, I already created a proposal. And what I did here was I actually put in all the roads that are proposed in our area. So I upgraded roads that were originally like just little small roads. I made them collectors or highways or whatever. And so if you look at this, that's what these roads are. So we've been doing a lot of stuff on that property, the site plan and all that I was doing. That's all in this area right here. Y'all's property lines up over here and over here. You'll notice that I actually put in the bypass as well as feeder roads and then some other roads to tie them in. That's what these are right here. So I've already put in that information, but you don't want to mess with this one either. This is kind of the initial state that you want to work with. So let's create a new proposal. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to come in where it says initial state. I'm going to click on it and then I'm going to come in here and go add. Now these proposals are alphabetical. So I would suggest you do kind of what we were doing when we were creating layers. I'm going to go ahead and number this O2. And then I'll call it, oh, by the way, it doesn't like spaces, so I'm going to use an underscore. And I'm going to call this road, oh, it still don't like spaces, road design, I guess. I'm going to hit OK. So now what it's going to do is it's going to start at that 0, 1 initial state. So it still has all that information. And then anything I add here won't be in the initial state design. And so this is a way that you can kind of layer out your information. And sometimes you might have a proposal that you want to show one certain thing, and then another proposal that's going to show something completely different. So what we're going to do, though, is we're going to come in, and I'm just going to come to an empty part of my area, and I'm going to go ahead. I want to create a major collector. So I'm going to come over, and I'm going to create a road. Now, what you'll see up here, these are different ways to create, and they're pretty standard in this setup. Now, when we get to 2021, which we're not going to probably get in this class, they kind of change the icons and make them much more what you would expect to see kind of if you were working with Civil 3D. A little bit different type of drop-down menu and things like that. But this is how we're going to use ours. So there should be a couple standard things. So right here, you have general information. That's the thing that kind of looks like a Rubik's Cube. You have selection options. That's the arrow. Create is going to be like a pencil. And then this one over here is going to allow you to analyze your model. And then it'll have different information. So in this one, this icon is build and manage and everything like that. And it has a lot of the base commands in there and ways you can pull in data sources, layers, all that stuff. If you come over to create, you look, it'll allow you to do roads. These are a little bit different roads, and we'll talk about that when we're pulling in some roads in a second. We'll have barriers, we'll have buildings. A lot of stuff that we're going to actually put into our design is going to go right here. But what we're going to actually do right now is what's called a component road. So that's going to be the kind of brownish gold road button to the right. We're going to create a component road. And these roads are the ones that are very similar to the roads that we use in Civil 3D, which is why we want to use these. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to click on component road. And it's going to come in, and right here I can select the style. And so I'm going to come over and go, I can't remember if I spelled out. Yeah, here it is. Let's not do 2, let's do 4. And so what I want is a 4-lane road that doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. So I don't want to have like a Jersey barrier. That's the barrier on the side. Sloped asphalt and median. That's not bad. Should we go with that? Let's go all the way down here. Oh, here's just a 4-lane undivided. And so I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to go ahead and create my road. And I'm going to do it from the bottom to the top, because what that means is what I design as my right side will look right in my picture. What I design as my left side will look left in my picture. And so I'm going to come in, I'm going to click, and sometimes you have to do this twice. There we go. I've got the beginning part of my line. And then I'm just going to come up here, and you really don't have to go far. I'm going to come up here, I don't know, about that far. Now, before I click on my next one, I'm just going to right click and select in draw. And that's going to make just this little tiny road here. And I can now zoom into it and kind of look at it. And the reason why it's called a component road, and we're going to mess around with this in a little bit, is each of these things are basically like our little sub-assembly. So we've messed around with that before in Civil 3D. So I have a lane, a lane, a lane, and a lane. So that's what's making up this road. And then right here, of course, is what would be the center line. So a little bit different approach than what we did with our assembly, but very similar in how we're going to edit it and things like that. So based on the existing road design, we still have to tweak it a little bit. For one, this program defaults to metric sum, and so it throws off some of the dimensions of the roadway and all that. One thing that we want to do is we're going to have to change the width of the road to 12 feet. We're going to have to change the slope to -3% because that's the standards in our area. And then we can do this same to other lanes. What the other thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and insert a road component. And so right now, this is just 2 lanes on either side, nothing else going on. We're going to add a curb and gutter to both sides. And then we're going to go ahead and fit it to the entire alignment. And I'll show you what I mean in the demo. Okay, one of the things that you may want to check whenever you start off is what units you're using. So here's how we're going to fix that. A lot of the commands as far as settings and all are going to go right here in this version. It's got the 3 lines kind of right here. If we click on it, settings, application options are right here. If I open them up under units and unit configuration, I can come here and set it to imperial, and it'll change everything to feet and square feet and things like that. So once I do that, I can come in. You can actually adjust this. We're going to talk about the difference between survey feet and feet, but we'll talk about that in a little bit when we're bringing in data. I want to show you some information on that, but right now we can hit OK, and it's going to set everything and switch everything over. Right now, you also notice that my road has a design speed of 25 miles an hour, and I'm going to up that. Our collector is supposed to have a design speed of at least 45, so I'm going to click on that. And we'll change some of the data later. But now, if I click on an individual component, and sometimes you have to come in and click twice, depending on what the data is. And so I'm going to come in here. It's going to select that portion. And now I can change some of the information. So I'm going to change the width to 12 feet. And I'm going to come over here. I'm going to change the depth to 1 foot. And then the slope, I'm going to set to -3%. And then when I'm done, I just can click in the open area that'll input that information. And then I can repeat that for the other portions. Now, one of the parts that's kind of clumsy to me at this point in time is that there's not a select all sort of thing and update it. I have a feeling that'll be coming. Maybe it's in 2021. I haven't messed with it yet. But that'll be nice where you can hold down control, pick all of your similar lanes, and change them all at the same time. Right now, though, that's not possible. And so you have to do this at each of the lanes. So I'm going to finish that one out and then finally do this one. 12, 1. And -3. And so now we have this pretty good. I've clicked in this open area. If I actually right click, there's an option to show a cross-section view, and sometimes this helps in letting you see what's going on. If I select that, it's actually going to give me a cross-section of my design, and so I can put this somewhere where I can adjust it, things like that, and kind of move it around. Speaking of moving around, I didn't mention this before, but I should now. The mouse is going to work. The roller part of the mouse works the same way. You can zoom in and out. Your right click button here is the pan button. Your left click button is going to be your rotate. So that's how you move things around and all that. Slightly different from what we've messed around with before. But if I look at this now, I can come in, and if I select, I can real quickly get my cross-section for my design. It'll just kind of pop up until I get rid of it. And so I can come in and bring it in. So let's go ahead and put in those curves. So what I would like to do is I'd like to add a curb. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select my road, and I'm going to right click, and right here is an option to insert a road component. And so I'm going to come in, and it gives me a selection. This is very much like the palette that we used before. Let me go find the thing. So if you come up on this filter, I'm going to come in and go type in curb, and I have different types of curves. I'm going to go with this curb and gutter, and if I click on it, it's going to go over, and I can then place it. And if you look, see the little yellow? That is where it's going to try to come in. So if I come over here, it'll come in on this side. If I come over here, it'll come in on this side. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll click here. It's going to update the model. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And so there's my curb. Now it has different dimensions. So right now it has a 1.5 foot depth. The curb height is 0.74. The gutter width is 1.48. And so I can come in and then look at those numbers and kind of change everything right here. So I'm going to change the curb height to 0.5, the gutter width to 1, and I'm not going to mess with the gutter slope. The depth, let's make the depth 1 as well. And so I can put that in. And then you'll notice these little grips. If you click on them, you can drag those down to the end of the line, like so. But let's say right now I have kind of a short thing. What if I had a long thing that I want to add this in? One of the other options you can do is if you select it, if you come over here where it says align to and click it, it'll allow you to, it'll just jump to the end of the road or give you that option, or to the beginning of the road. And so you have the way to control it right there. So let me do that again. I'm going to come over. See, here's our curb. And so if I right click here, insert road component, and I'll just put it, I'll put it up here. So it's going to come in, and then I want to change my numbers again. So 1.5 width is 0.5, curb height was 0.5, and gutter width was 1. I'm sorry, the depth was 1 too. And then it's in here, and I can just stretch it the whole length. Oops, missed it. Start of the road, click over here and place it. So now if I select my road, here's my cross section of the road. So very, very cool, and easy way to design out my curb and gutter. So that's our design, and that's how we're going to start off. We're going to add some more components to this, sidewalk, things like that, and we'll do that in a bit. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a grass area and a sidewalk to this. We're actually going to also customize a little bit of how the sidewalk looks and all that in our design. And so that's going to be kind of our next plan. Once we do that and we've kind of finished out this road as a collector, we're going to go ahead and save this assembly so we can use it later. And so we're going to go ahead, we're going to go to road assembly, we're going to add it to our library, and then once it's there, we're not going to have to rebuild this every time. It'll just be one of the ones that's stored in this file. And so that'll be a little bit easier thing that we can do. Okay, so let's go ahead and okay, so we're going to pick up where we left off. I'm going to right click. First, let me select the road. Got to right click, insert road component. I'm going to come over here, type in grass. There it is. Slope grass area or median. Right now, we just want the slope grass area. Let's set this at 3 feet. And the depth, I'm not too worried about. The slope, I'll put it at a -2% grade. And then I'm basically done, but you'll notice a couple things. Where you didn't have it in the curb because this didn't necessarily work out, and things like this, you can actually have a tapered in and tapered out portion. Now, because of where I placed this, it doesn't give me the tapered out portion, but the tapered in is right here. Well, in this case, I want this to go the whole length, and so I'm going to right click, and I'm going to get rid of the transition in. So I'm going to come right here where it has that checkbox. I'm going to uncheck it. Just going to adjust it, and now I can move this all the way to the beginning. Whoops, missed it. Let's go all the way to the beginning. Start of the road. There we go. And so it's going to place that. And now I got to go the same thing on this side. So right click, deselect, right click, insert road component. I want to go all the way out, so I'm outside that curb. So don't make sure you do that as opposed to inside the curb. And it actually is going to default to the same thing here. So I'm just going to place it. And here we have the grass. And so 3 feet. Don't care about that. And -2. And we'll roll this one all the way down as well. Sometimes I wonder if it's easier to just drag it as opposed to the other. So now if we look, if we deselect, now we have our nice little median area and all that with our design. So this is just a little grass area. It actually has a little bit of a, when I select it, it has a little bit of a taper. You can adjust that. I'm not going to right now as I put in my other stuff that's going to kind of clean out. All right, so let's go ahead. On the outside of that, I'm going to right click, insert road component, and I'm going to type in sidewalk. And here it is right here. So I'm going to put sidewalk right here, place it. It has 2 transitions, so let's get rid of those first before I adjust anything. I'm going to right click, and I'll get rid of transition in. I apologize. And then I'll get rid of transition out. Now I can adjust the position to the start and ultimately the end of my part. And then I can come over with the width. I'm going to make this a 6-foot width. The depth is fine. And the slope is going to be a 2% slope. And I'll click over. There it goes. I made that a -2. I realized that should be 2%. And so now I have that sidewalk, and then I can come over and do the same thing over here. So insert road component, do the exact same thing. Get rid of this transition. Because of the way these are set up, you can actually create some really unique shapes in all of this. This is 6 foot and 2%. And let's just drag this one, all the way to the beginning. Click out here. There we go. So now we have this, but you'll notice, let me zoom in and you can look. This is what it gave me as my sidewalk. Well, I'm just using, we're not fancy here. We just pour out the concrete and all. We're not doing anything fancy. So how do you change something like that? Well, if you come in and select that component, right up here is a material. And if you click the little swatch right here, you can go and find other materials. I'm going to come over. There's 4 that are kind of pre-selected. Let me try this one. And so I'm going to select that one, and then I'll just kind of click off of it, and we can look and see how that one comes in. Yep, that's what I want. So I'm going to go with that style. That looks good. So I'll do the same thing over here. And I'll change that one to the same thing. It's this 3W3 high, a gridded pattern, I would assume. All right, so that's how you can also change. So if I wanted like a darker road asphalt, I could pick that. If I wanted a concrete look, I could change that. I could change my grass to look like something different, and all that. Go ahead and close that out. So now our last step is, I don't want to have to do this every time I create a collector. So what I can do is I can come in here and right click, or select the road, sorry, and right click. And under road assembly, I'm going to select add to library. And it's going to ask me what cross section basically do I want to add to the library? Well, I'll just pick somewhere. This is all uniform, so I can pick right here. And let's go major corridor for typo 4 lane, and then I'm going to go ahead and add BCS as a code so that we know it's for the Bryan College Station area. So I'll hit OK. And it's going to take a little while. Now that one's saved. And so if I come over here, let's create a new road. And so if I want to create a new component road, I can come over, and instead of using the 4-lane undivided, if I click there and type in like BCS, BCS. There it is, major corridor. And if I click and right click and in draw, see, I get the exact same layout. So that's one of the ways that we can set up our design. Now here's the nice thing. Once I have that created, and I could have worked either way with that, I can now go over, let's do a residential road. Well, how will I do that? Well, this one's actually really easy. If I select that component and hit delete, it's going to go away. If I select this component, hit delete, it's going to go away. Now, if I right click and go road assembly, add to library, I can now create one called residential road BCS. Hit OK. It's going to add that to library, and now I have a residential road that I can use. If I wanted to, I could also create one that only has a sidewalk on the left or have a sidewalk on the right and create a whole little library of these. But those are the two major ones I'm going to set up, and you can do the same thing. So what we're going to do next is we're now going to take some data. Now that we kind of have our road set up and all that, we're going to take some data that we get from Civil 3D, and we're going to place it into our design file that we've just created, and change those roads and all that we have into actual roads for our design. And we're going to do that once we tie into some of the Civil 3D information in the next video.